What are we doing
like,
here?
I love European football that much. I think people who love European football that much are lying to themselves. But
Is there no probables for tomorrow now?
no, I was looking at it too. Good afternoon, St. Louis, and welcome into Card Central 365 on STL Sports Central. I'm your host for today, Matthew Rocchio, joined by Grant Salsman. Grant, how you doing today, sir?
Doing well. Excited for some Cardinals baseball tomorrow.
Are you doing well?
I am doing well.
Good for you. I'm excited for some Cardinals baseball tomorrow because we haven't had baseball that's mattered for a couple of days now, and that's been supremely annoying. And so we finally get some baseball to talk about. And of course, with the Cardinals this year, I think we're going to have plenty of things to talk about because after that first half of the season, that puts them 5 games over 500, 5+5 in the win column, whichever way you want to look at it. There are a lot of thoughts going into the second half. Can the Cardinals continue to outplay their expectations? Can Sonny Gray outplay his season or career averages, I should say, when he moves in late on into the season? Can the offense continue to hit without having power?
Yeah.
Can the defense continue to back a very good pitching staff? Can the pitching staff continue to do what we've seen from them? Obviously, the rotation has started to crack a little bit. So a lot of questions from the first half as we roll into the second half. Which is the biggest one for you?
Ooh, I think the biggest one is the pitching staff right now. The bullpen probably exceeded expectations. The Eric Fedde and Miles Michaelis have fallen off a cliff in recent starts. Obviously, Miles Michaelis had that nice start to close out the first half, but I think it's the pitching rotation. Liberators looked not quite what we saw in that first half. A lot of things that were outperformed in that whole rotation, including the bullpen. I'm curious how it continues in the second half.
We were just talking about it with Randy Carricker on the Randy Carricker Show featuring Brooke Grimsley. You mentioned Matthew Liberatore. Obviously, a lot of plaudits, a lot of reasons to be positive about Matthew Liberatore, but Katie Wu pointed this out in her story on The Athletic as well. Both Andre Palante and Matthew Liberatore trending towards career highs in innings pitched. Do you think that's going to be something that becomes an issue or just a talking point as we move into September? Because Liberatore right now closing, he'll need to pass about 120 if you combine majors and minors as his career high.
Yeah.
And Palante about 120 innings last year as well. When he passes that 120 inning mark, we'll be moving into his career high for innings pitched in the season, both minors and majors combined.
I think it's more of a talking point because I do think you get to a point of innings where eventually it doesn't really affect you that much. It's not like these are two guys that are used to being relievers that all of a sudden have turned into starters.
They have both been relievers.
They have been, but I'm saying that for a majority of their career, they've been starters.
But so it's for me, you got to remember the Cardinals kind of treat this like a math problem, which is they only like to add 20 to 40 innings onto a pitcher as we go year to year. And I'm not saying they're going to stick to that number, but that's been their case in the past. And clearly, I think that they're going to push it this year with Liberatore and Palante. But I still think it's something that we have to look at, not here in July, not here in August, but as we get into September and the end of the season, it could be something we see. Maybe we see an off day here and there. They try to extend it to 6 starters. Maybe that's how we see Michael McGreevy get incorporated even sooner in the Cardinals rotation, because I know that's another thing that people really want to see.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely see something of maybe if you have that off day, we'll push everyone back a day if we're able to, and give Libby and Palante 6 days rest. Find a spot for McGreevy more often. I think they're going to push it, but I think they'll also find ways to give them extra rest, but not shut them down completely. No, it's not like they're going to get to an inning mark. Exactly.
Yeah, like I'm not saying they're going to get to that point, but I just think when you start pushing that 140, 100, maybe are they going to get to 160? So they're 100 right now. So
they're both at 100 right now.
They're both right at 100 right now. They could conceivably get over 140, and so you're not looking at 160. So I don't see them maybe pushing it that hard. So maybe it's not an issue. Chewy comes in here, and please jump into the chat. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe right here on the YouTube channel. Chewy dives into the chat, and if you want to dive into the chat, you can pretty much run this show. If Ivon Herrera plays the rest of the season and is healthy, will hit better than the first half of the season. I think you're right about that one. Does Nolan Gorman have a hot month like he's had over June and into July? That's a big question in the second half. Do you get Jordan Walker back? Is he the Jordan Walker of pre-injury from May? I think those are also tangible questions. Again, Wilson Contreras healthy, playing a good first base. He's hitting the ball well. I like where Chewy's going with this.
Yeah, and on top of that, hopefully this week has given that Nolan Arenado's basically been off a few games before the break too, will help him maybe stay fresh, because I think that's a bat too I want to look at in this second half that I think will be on the rise a little bit. And having Herrera in there, it deepens this lineup so much. Just one more bat, you feel a lot more depth. It's a lot harder to get through this lineup with just him back.
Yeah, it gives you the big punch you need. That's the big thing. The big bat is something we just don't see with the Cardinals in this lineup. So to your point, if you're not going to have the big bat, you have to have 6 or 7 quality hitters up and down the lineup. And Ivon Herrera gives you the big bat, but then that means guys like Nolan Arenado, when he is hitting, Wilson Contreras, like we were just talking about, they don't have to pick up as much heft as usual. This is Card Central 365 on STL Sports Central, presented by Gray Bar. Also, our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook, where the crown is yours. We'll tell you more about our sponsors as we keep rolling. So for you, was Ivon Herrera's bat the biggest surprise from the first half?
Ooh, yeah, I think
in a positive manner.
Yeah, I think it has to be, because obviously the injury woes make it the impact is slightly less than what it looked like it could have been. But I think that we were coming into this season saying if Herrera could just be at least serviceable, you'll be very happy with that. And then he turned into probably the most important bat in this lineup. And I think another surprise is the success they've had out of this catching conundrum they've kind of been in, I think is the best way to put it. All of a sudden, you've gotten really, really high defense out of Pedro Pages, a serviceable backup in Pozo, and Ivon Herrera, probably the best hitter on your team. So I think a lot of questions were answered in that first half, especially out of 2 or 3 of those guys.
I still have a lot of catcher questions, because apparently they just don't feel comfortable playing Pozo every day, despite his bat. And my thing with the Pages is
his bat's bad.
We can't. It's not his bat's bad anymore. We can't discredit or discount how often we've heard pitchers talk about how comfortable they feel and everything like that. But his defense hasn't been good for the last month. Like it hasn't been. He hasn't been a good defensive catcher the last month and a half. Full stop. I think that's just every number kind of proves that. The eye test will prove that. He's still managing the pitchers, I think, in a fine way, but he's not a good defensive catcher over the last month and a half. And so that's kind of why I wince every time we throw out that point, because it's pitcher management, which is different than being a good defensive catcher. We got to separate those things now, because we're just kind of accepting that we're not going to have a super clean game behind the plate necessarily, but if you got to handle the pitchers, and if Pages is better than that than Pozo, then you're trading the 180 points in OPS between the two.
Yeah, I believe that's right around what
I don't know if I'm okay with still making that trade-off.
Okay. I'm kind of in the same boat. I think Pozo's bat is better than Pages' defense, or I should say his game management. It comes to a point where
Pages' OPS right now is a 587, and Pozo's is still in the 800s, 835.
Yeah, it comes to a point where I think the offense is more important.
And so this is why I still have questions about the catcher spot, because you have a lot of catchers who are coming up in the system. And so this isn't necessarily a bad issue to have, is that you're just trying to figure out what's the hot hand to play with a couple of journeymen. Not a bad issue to have when some of your top prospects, or I guess the majority of your top prospects and a large percentage of your highest and most positive top prospects are all catchers. So this isn't a bad problem to have, but I'm a little confused why it's still so hardcore Pages. And I guess it's because, I don't want to be hypocritical here, we all kind of agreed that the way the Cardinals should be pushing this roster construction is a defense first roster construction. Play defense, small, lower scoring games because they don't have a lot of power on offense. They also have a great defense. That was the one big stat that The Athletic pointed out in their one stat for every team into the second half, is that the Cardinals allow a lot of contact. The pitchers allow a lot of hits, but the defense gets to everything and they don't make a lot of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there are a lot of potential, again, like I said earlier in the open of the show, there's some cracks that could form fairly easily if all of a sudden, the pitching, if the defense just like rattles a little bit.
Yeah.
And it hasn't so far. The fact that the defense hasn't been great behind the plate hasn't affected the rest of the defense. But you talk about 2 more months of baseball and getting to the dog days and things get stretched out and things might change.
Yeah, and to that point, it was one of Palante's recent starts. I think it might have been against the Cubs that he gave up 7 runs or so, and it was a lot of soft contact. I think an error was thrown in there, and there was a couple plays that.
So he actually had a great start against the Cubs. Then Palante got destroyed by. He allowed 3 innings in 4 1/3 against Milwaukee, 7 earned runs to the Royals.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
And then 7 earned runs to the Nationals.
I believe the start I'm thinking of, though, is the Royals. And with that, I think it's a
pretty bad team to have 2 home runs against you.
Some home runs, but also what led to some of the home runs was soft contact, some plays that maybe if the Cardinals, on their day playing their best defense, make a couple plays, the home runs never happen. But if the defense isn't perfect at times, and Andre Palante is a great example of that with the contact, things like that can happen. And that's to hammer on the point of the Athletic article. If that defense just slips a little bit, and your point, things like that can happen.
It sucks we can't have Herrera and Gorman play every day because they could be our power bats. One of the big things when we look in the second half is going to be the trade deadline. Do you think we see the Cardinals move from a position of power, depth at the middle infield, depth in the outfield? Do you think you see the Cardinals trade from that position of depth for anything? Maybe it's a pitcher, maybe it's a right-handed bat.
No, I really don't. I think that if you see anything, it would be a very soft buy. It would be something like
for a relief pitcher,
that, or like maybe the
classic mode.
Maybe like a John Lester-esque starter. I don't know. I don't have a name out there right now, but I don't think, like, if you're thinking of the big trade pieces, a Helsley, a Arenado,
or I'm just saying trading from the depth they have at second base in the outfield. Do we see Lars Nootbaar, a Nathan Church, a Thomas Sajaci, something along those lines?
I could see
get moved, a future for future kind of thing, where they're not trading for a veteran, but it's we'll give you some of our 21-year-olds so we can get your 24-year-old, so on and so forth.
I think the first, you said what, Church and Nootbaar, the first 2 names you said?
Yeah,
I think those guys would fetch a little too much of what your soft buy would pertain, but I think Sajaci would very much fit the Lane Thomas type of trade. So I think that is a guy that maybe people aren't thinking of that we could see moved out to try to create some space for Nolan Gorman.
Cole Bass's left foot. Mozeliak's balancing short-term playoff hopes with long-term roster health, a deadline dealer with legacy on the line, and that's going to make the trade deadline quite fascinating. And we're going to be covering every part of the trade deadline right here live on STL Sports Central. Make sure you hit that bell button so whenever we go live right here on Card Central 365 or any of our other shows, you'll know when we're going live. Talked about everything here today. Can they keep on hitting? Can the pitching continue? Can Sonny Gray get through all those extra jerseys in the hot month of August and continue his strong start? That'll be the biggest part. And can Ivon Herrera continue his return and continue hitting the way he was in the first half? All of that will be big factors into answering our question. Will the Cardinals keep surprising us into the second half? Either way, we'll be covering it right here on STL Sports Central and Card Central 365. For Grant Salsman, I'm Matthew Rocchio, and for our wonderful sponsor at DraftKings, make sure to check them out. St. Louis sports fans, we're deep into the season, and right now you can't get any great baseball wagers up, but there are great. You can have some fun with some summer league. You can plan for your baseball wagers tomorrow on DraftKings Pick 6, the all-new way to play daily fantasy sports. Right now, all new customers who play just $5 will get $50 in bonus picks. That's 10 extra picks to keep the action going all week long. It's easy to start, fun to follow, and gives you a whole new way to play and stay connected to the game. Download DraftKings Pick 6 app today and use code STL Sports right there on the screen, code STL Sports, when you sign up, only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
The Cardinals will be back underway. They start a 3-game series against the Diamondbacks tomorrow evening. We don't have the probable starters out just yet. 8:40 first pitch, 3 games against the Diamondbacks, 3 games against the Rockies, and then an extremely crucial 4 games right here at Busch Stadium against the Padres. And that's when everything will really get decided, right around the trade deadline. Again, all your Cardinals news right here on STL Sports Central. For Grant Salsman, I'm Matthew Rocchio, and this has been Card Central 365, presented by Gray Bar and DraftKings Sportsbook. Have a great day, St. Louis.